Hello, welcome to the Subspace DevSync bi-weekly DevSync, which we haven't had, I believe, for 4 weeks. So glad to be back and update everybody on the progress we've been making. So a couple of communications announcements. Gemini 3E finally launched. It was a bit of an effort to get it out there, but glad to see it up and working for the most part. We do have a known issue farming from the reference implementation. These are things that are kind of expected for certain things not to work, as we're actively working on fixing and improving the protocol. Also, we did have, since the last call, a product offsite, kind of a follow-up to the protocol offsite. A lot of great work got done there. Launching of Sapiel AI. You'll be hearing, I'm sure, much more on that over the next weeks and months. So, all right, let's talk about some of the highlights from the projects. Daria, from a research perspective, I know you've been very busy, you and the research team. Do you mind giving an update on kind of progress that's been made?
Yeah, there's been a lot written. I've been writing days long. So with the consensus, base consensus been finished, maybe you can say like those 4 weeks back. There were a couple of features that were added. The most important feature that was added to the base consensus was sector expiration, which is a notion when farmers plot. Right now, their sectors that they plot, they never expire. However, that's an issue, because as our history of the chain grows, we want people to keep updating their plots as well, so the new history gets archived with the same replication as the old history. So we've developed a protocol for those sectors to uniformly expire, amortized over time. So basically, by the time history doubles from the moment the farmer plotted, like half of their plot more or less would expire, but it would never expire like all the same, all together. You will never miss out on like farming rewards for a long time. So it's really nice design of that, to making them uniformly and smoothly expire and replot, and make sure that new history gets distributed not only to new farmers but also to old farmers, and load balance them all. The big development that has been written was the proof of time specification, which is the second big puzzle to consensus, which is all about developing a secure randomness beacon, which would be the beacon that gives our domain operators randomness from which they can do the election of the leader to produce bundles. And our farmers would give challenges so that they can go and scan their plots and see whether they can win a block. So it's very important for that to be secure, and we're basing it on one of the David Say's papers, and also other developments that have been done and audited in Subspace a couple of years ago. Now we're finally setting it in stone and in the implementation, and Rahul is already working in implementation. This week I will be working on the last part of that, which would be a fraud proof if proof of time was produced incorrectly. Another thing, I have been tasked with maintenance of the domain specification, and that's a huge one. And I had to, basically learn the design of all domains, something that I was not familiar on. So I've been pinging Ved and Lucheng with a lot of questions. And recently we have been writing the staking protocol, basically everyone together and discussing it a lot. I think it's going great. Still keeping it on, it's on constant maintenance for now. There are things that are changing in the implementation. There are things that need to be updated. There are things that need to be clarified. So it's still a piece of work, but when it's done, I think it's going to be made public, just as our consensus specification is. Oh, and I've started a centralized place for all the protocol specifications. Still not perfect, but way to go.
By the way, I think we are ready when you're ready to start moving some of these things to GitHub. So we can discuss that in the next week or two, Daria.
Okay, yeah, we'll discuss it in our next sync.
Okay. And great job on the domains. That's been a lot of work. I know I woke up again today to a lot of notifications, a lot of discussion happening there. So that's great. Nazar, I know there's been a lot of research happening and you get to be the implementation arm of much of that research. So how are things coming on your side?
Since we didn't have the DevSync since the protocol engineering offsite, basically, there were a lot of things happening, even since Gemini 3e launched a little while ago. So in total, we essentially have the complete implementation of the base consensus protocol, minus proof of time, which we are working on. The only thing remains is to improve performance and change some parameters. But all like feature work is complete. So on the main branch, we have the consensus the way it is described in our specification, and it works as far as I can tell. So that is a big milestone for the protocol, and hopefully we will not change it in a major way before mainnet from this point. It will be just polishing, improving performance and quality. And yeah, basically we are almost done there. So very, very happy about that.
Great. Another key part, as we approach mainnet is being able to communicate with other chains. And that's Parth's area. Parth, how are things coming along on your side? I know we've been exploring different options, one of which is layer 0.
Yes, yes. So after protocol offsite, we have explored layer 0 in much detail. So we have went through their implementation, ask around in Discord and everything, and we figured out that for layer 0 to work, in production we can run our own relayer, while Oracle we need to be set up by layer 0 or by ourselves using Chainlink, so that it will be at least independent from basically outside of Subspace control, Oracle. So to for this, we need to build an MVP showcasing that the relayer can work and is able to transfer fund from one chain to another. For that, we have built a minimum viable product, basically that as of right now can transfer asset from uh, Sepolia testnet Ethereum to Fuji. And right now it is unpolished. The next part here is to make this bidirectional, clean the code up, make it more generic, and afterwards, once we decide upon our approach on how to go about Chainlink part, we can remove the Oracle part in the product, and only the relayer will work.
Great. And it'll be also important to get a EVM domain up so that we're, I guess,
Yeah.
transferring to and from Subspace, but that should just be parameterized, I imagine. So,
Yeah, that
yep,
that is not an issue.
yep. Great. Great to hear the progress being made there. All right. Finally, Muhammad, I know, one of the big things that's a struggle with our builds is how long everything takes. So we're often waiting to progress on builds that are taking hours and hours. And Muhammad, you've done some work to improve that situation. You want to talk about that a bit?
Yeah, so we've been working on the GitHub runners for quite a bit, and primarily it was just the Windows one that was so difficult to get the builds going. But finally got it going and tested it, and it's working with CLI. So I've converted the CLI wrapper over to use the self-hosted runners, the SDK, and also I've done the changes for the mono wrapper. The build times have decreased quite significantly on CLI and SDK from 4 hours and things like that down to sometimes less than an hour, depending on the build jobs themselves. There's some things I want to do to improve it a bit with Rust, just some things I want to figure out. But for now, it's good to go. And yeah, and created AMIs for it too also, so we don't have to go through all of that headache again and configuring the environment. So we can use our own custom AMIs for that if we ever decide to change the machines in the future or anything like that. So that's what I've been working on that. Yeah, other things I'm working on is just finishing on migrations. So I've launched the Gemini 3E Explorers and handed it over to Natasha today. Set up the telemetry infrastructure. I've done that. I'm just going to set up the Docker Compose stuff for that, the environment. And yeah, that should be done. And I'm also working on a monitor logging now. So I'm going to set up the agents on all the servers to scrape all the logs and set up a central server with Victoria Metrics. I'm going to try that one first to aggregate all the logs there and have it so we can capture all the logs and retain it for a longer period of time. Help debug any issues we have in the future.
Great. All right. That was all the project highlights. It was actually quite a bit. So is there anything remaining to be discussed? All right, I guess not. Well, we will see everybody again in 2 weeks. Thanks.